The Toronto Raptors are gearing up to make a huge trade before the trade deadline. Hey guys, my name's Manu Kamia, and before I jump into this video, I just want to ask you guys to give me the HBO special, and that is the Help a Brother Out. You can do that by hitting the subscribe button and leaving a like underneath this video. I don't like long intros, so let's jump back into this Toronto Raptors news. Yes, so on a recent episode of C.J McCollum's show, C.J McCollum said that he's heard rumblings about guys being unhappy with the situation that they're currently in within the Toronto Raptors organization. C.J went on to say that he can't really speak about the certain players or what situations because that could be tampering, he could be fined for that. But when asked about the situation that the Toronto Raptors find themselves in right now, being the 11th seed in the Eastern Conference, being 5 games under 500, and just being an overall disappointment for what the fans expected the Toronto Raptors to be, CJ had this to say, quote, "Something needs to change because they, the Raptors, are way too talented to be struggling." He continued saying, quote, "They've got too many good pieces, too many guys who are not only impactful and quality players on that team, the Raptors, but that would be impactful and quality players on other teams and have larger roles depending on who they decide to move." Now that's a lot to take in. Who could CJ McCollum be talking about? There's a lot of guys on the Toronto Raptors that are really, really good players. I mean, they're all very talented players. They could be talented players on different teams. They could be perfect fit for so many different teams. But I want you guys to keep what he said, larger roles on other teams, in the back of your mind. That's going to come back to be important. Now the trade deadline is nearing and coming up here soon. It's going to be February 9th. So it's less than a month away. And many have speculated that Gary Trent Jr. is a primary suspect for the Toronto Raptors to move off of come trade deadline, and for a good reason. See, the way that it's situated right now, Gary Trent Jr.'s contract, the contract that he was on with the Portland Trail Blazers, the way that it is right now, he could opt out of that contract and choose to test the market through free agency. And if he does so, many have speculated that with his talent, he could command north of $20 million a year. And a figure like that could be daunting for the Toronto Raptors, in which they don't want to pay. And so the best thing they could do is try and move off of him now and actually get something back in return for him, instead of just letting him walk in free agency and not getting anything in return. Furthermore, Gary Trent Jr. was drafted by the Portland Trail Blazers all the way back in 2018. And he spent some time with them. He played along, guess who? C.J. McCollum, before he was traded to the Toronto Raptors. And remember what C.J. McCollum said, it could be tampering if I talk about certain guys on the Toronto Raptors. Meaning, there are guys that maybe he could be trying to pry from the Toronto Raptors, trying to court, right, recruit to the New Orleans Pelicans. Could CJ McCollum be indicating that he is trying to get one of his old teammates to come play with him in New Orleans? Now, the New Orleans Pelicans and the Toronto Raptors, it's been speculated and written about in articles that they could be poised to make a trade here in the upcoming months, and I'm going to get into that just in a bit here. But one big name that could be moved before the trade deadline is Fred Vanvleet. Now, Fred Vanvleet has been such a huge name for the Toronto Raptors. He's been such a huge part of the Toronto Raptors' success in the recent 4 years. He was on a team that went all the way and won a championship with Kawhi Leonard. I mean, that team probably couldn't have won the NBA championship without Fred VanVleet's shooting. He was stellar, right? He was stellar. The Toronto Raptors understood and saw his value throughout that run, and they kept him. They gave him money afterward. They decided to let Kyle Lowry go and keep Fred VanVleet. That's how important he was. But on a recent episode of J.J Reddick's podcast, Fred VanVleet opened up about why he's been having such a down year, in contrast, in comparison to last year, in which he made a huge breakthrough, making his first ever All-Star appearance. He attributed his slump this year to having a lesser role throughout the team, and saying that he doesn't have the ball in his hand as much anymore, and he's got to take back a few steps. I probably imagine this is due to the developmental aspect of Scotty Barnes being on a team, but I want you guys to go back to what CJ McCollum